Here's my new microwave. Well, it's not new. This was thrown out by a neighbour because the motor that turns the plate inside had stopped working. And I had a microwave which was getting a bit dated. So I took this rod and let it be picked up by the scrap men. Unfortunately, the motor in mine was a direct fit in this one, even though they're completely different functionalities and completely different makes. But under the skin, there's a great amount of commonality in microwaves. Well, what you're about to see is a fail. That is, I took my old microwave to pieces to see if I could find anything useful for a model railway or large scale, garden scale locos to add to them. And I thought I might find something, but not so far. The only thing I found that may be of use in the future is the copper of the magnetron, the main body of the magnetron. So that's what you're going to see in this video, but I'm going to give you a little preview of the next one. So this video will be stripping down and looking at bits of a microwave, but here's a preview of the next one. It isn't my intention to reuse this microwave. Having said that, until I started taking it apart, this is a fully functioning microwave oven, but it was surplus to requirements. When I say fully functioning, I had taken the motor off this to put onto a different microwave oven that I did want to keep, that had a non-functioning motor. And the reason for doing that is because the inside of it is corroding. So electronically working, inside corroding. So all I'm doing is recording what I see. Down there is the door interlock. Here's a transformer. There's a fan on the back with some nice blades on it. Can't see it because of the darkness. There's another transformer. So no, that's not a transformer. Sorry, that's the microwave gun. The diode gun, which is what I'm going to pull apart. There's a high voltage transformer, a high voltage fuse, I think, and tucked away in there is a capacitor. So I might take the capacitor out because capacitors can be useful. Not quite sure what that can be used for. I think that's a resistor just for discharging the capacitor to earth. So there's a resistor from that terminal to earth. Looking at this in case I unplug the things. From the other terminal we've got the, I'm assuming that's going to be a fuse in there, which is connected to one end of the high voltage transformer. And that's about it. There is a little circuit board up there, but there's not an awful lot to this. But I'm going to take it apart and see if there's anything there that I can use for my purposes. So here we are. This is the microwave gun, pointing at a mica window in the side of the microwave. I presume it's mica, with fins on it so that the cooling air blew down the side of this and then into the microwave cavity itself, and then out into the atmosphere. So it would keep this gun cool. Look, there's a little hole in the end of it. It's quite scary. It's a little bit like Popeye the Sailor Man when I was a child, these devices. But yep, that's the gubbins. As far as I know, Samsung, there are only a couple of manufacturers of microwave guns about. This one's made in Korea. They might be made in various places. They make them in the northeast of England. Whichever microwave you buy, it'll have one of those microwave guns in it. So I wonder if there's anything that I could use for my purposes in there. As I say, that's a fully functioning object, because this was a fully functioning microwave when I took it apart. Right, we take that bit off. Can't see much underneath. This is crimped on. Take that off, and we've got this woven mesh. Looks a bit like it could be, could just be copper or brass. It's screening material and conductive. There's this, let me just prise that away, material which is in a ring around here. It looks a bit ferrite-like, but one of the things about it is it's magnetic. So there's a ring magnet there. Ooh, who knows what we could do with a ring magnet? But that might be something useful. Let's keep it away from electronic bits and pieces. And there are two of those on this. Let's carry on with the strip. Okay, nothing was crimped on. The magnet lifts off. It's quite a nice magnet. So that's immediately of some use. So that will hold things onto a piece of metal. A nice circular piece of magnet. And even the steel washer on top of it is magnetized to it. So there we are. A good bit of pull on there. See what else? Shaking loose. I'm not sure if I can capture this on camera, but I don't know what's holding this in, whether it's a magnetic force or something else, but it seems to be pulling out. It's pulled out so far, and there is something holding it in, which will be whatever wires are attaching under there. And what about that bottom magnet? Okay, I can see a coil in there. I'm going to have to cut that off, and then I can extract it. So there's a coil inside the box at the back, and a couple of wires. Yeah, that is magnetic. Ooh. Sorry about that. So that's probably the diode microwave that generates microwaves, and what we've got there is another circular magnet, which I think is only held on by magnetic attraction. Maybe more. I'll try and prise that off. Yes, that's right. That ring magnet was only held onto there by magnetic attraction. It felt as though something mechanical holding it on. So what we now have are two quite powerful ring magnets, and if nothing else, can be used for holding things onto pieces of metal. I think in that cavity there's not a lot more than a couple of pieces of coiled wire, as far as I can see, coming from the terminals. No, there's not enough light to be able to focus in there properly. But just some copper wire coiled around. Yeah, that's all there is in there. And that's a cavity of some sort. Might be tuned. And there, our second ring magnet. Right, cut through one end, and it doesn't detach. Cut through the other end. Oh, and take out this little boy. Now, that looks like something that could be technical and might, the right colour, look like something on a steam engine. There we go, that's that bit. The the metal itself, unfortunately, isn't brass. There was a possibility that if it was brass, some of the curvature on there might be reusable as a cap for a chimney on a loco. And looking down it, where you see some copper fins, and then the reason I can't get the far end off is because there's a big conductor which is welded in, which goes right towards the end, that end cap. So if I'm to separate it, I need to see about getting that conductor out of maybe a tube, I don't know, and I may just be about to shear it off. But this outer casing looks like it's steel, and I don't want to waste blade cutting through that if there's nothing useful inside. It might be that if I take that end off, I'll see. Just possibly a little bit more promising in that this end, which is crimped over, appears to be copper. This that I've twisted and bent looks like it's a solid copper conductor, not a tube. It goes down the side, up into this cavity down the side. That's some other emitter, part of the diode, which goes into there. So I don't see anything particularly exciting that I could make use of, and it's a lot of work to go to just to get a little bit of copper there. Certainly not generally worth it. That's a ceramic material connecting the copper cap there to this other metal, which could be just pressed steel at this end. There we go then. I don't think there's any point taking it any further. The only thing is that that looks a little bit technical, and I might find a place for that on a loco, and at a different scale people can imagine it is something else. The best video, I think, for finding out about microwaves is one by Rudi Dehn. He's one of the inventors or developers of microwaves, and this isn't a gun diode, it's called a magnetron, and it was vacuum filled. I didn't hear any hissing or thing when I undid it. And what you've got is ceramic to metal bonding here, so that is ceramic, that's ceramic. But the other interesting thing is that this material here is actually copper. Don't know if it will show up on there. And so a lot softer than steel, and therefore could be quite interesting because it's heavy enough to be, well, it's not going to be thick enough to turn down into anything, but it is, it's copper. And so when you pull the, oh, I'm pulling it apart with my hand in the way, sorry guys. So when you pull it apart in this end, what I've got is the complete filament, tungsten filament used to generate the electrons in the vacuum, which are then, with the magnets, those ring magnets I had before, swirled around and then with the high voltage excited. And this copper block has veins in it which have a resonant frequency in that cavity, and we've got this length of copper coming out of it, which is like a waveguide tapping off some of those and sending them to the end of this thing here. So there we are, the magnetron. So that might be useful for something. If I need something that ends up being copper coloured, might be worth just keep putting in the scrap box. And as I said, the only useful bit I can see out of it is that that might look like a spring-loaded valve of some description. A bit far-fetched. A lot of work for little gain. So don't think I'm going to be pulling any other microwaves apart. Be careful. There are people, don't try and follow what other people do. This is me just pulling something apart to see if there are any useful bits inside. Don't be tempted to put any power in to a microwave like some people on YouTube have been. It's dangerous. Well, one piece I thought might immediately be useful has proved impossible. Whatever the filament was, you might remember seeing a coil. Tungsten, might have been a tungsten filament, completely brittle, so that has shattered. And even the connectors, whatever they are, whether they're, well, the wires, I thought it was just wire, electrodes, that has shattered. So if you look at the end of this, it looks like a sintered material, but it's completely brittle. It looks all nice and bright and shiny on the outside, but once it's shattered, it looks like it is, well, breaks like cast iron, but it looks like it's been sintered. So that wouldn't be any use in modelling because it's just too brittle and breaks apart when you, well, you could be more gentle with that than I was, I guess. So that's the end of that, and the rest of this orange part is fairly much just a solid piece of pink ceramic, and unless you wanted something exactly that shape, I have no intention of trying to turn it down or make something else out of that. Whether it might look like a little dome on something, I don't know, but there are easier ways of getting something that looks like a dome than taking that part of the magnetron out of a microwave. So, save you the trouble of looking at one yourself. The only useful thing I've taken out of it are a couple of ring magnets, and the only thing I have any hope for possibly is this piece of copper from the main body of the magnetron, but you know, it doesn't take up too much room in the scrap box, so there we are. I've not managed to immediately find anything that I felt was useful. I'm just going to try again, going in very slowly because it's not chucked very well. Fortunately there's a safety feature, you might call it, is that the belt will slip if anything gets loaded here. Yep, loaded. Turn it off. Right, this is a situation where this junior hacksaw blade may actually be able to do something. It's not a very good blade. Let's see if we can manage to get into it. Don't need to go that fast. I'm sure I can chuck it better than this. Let's try chucking it better. Move to position on the hacksaw where the teeth are less worn. It's only copper, it's very soft, and you can see it wobbling in the chuck because there's nothing firm for me to grip. It's maybe wobbling a bit too much there. Well, if all that fails, let's use the good old-fashioned bandsaw as a hacksaw. Another neighbour is having their house refurbished, and as part of the refurbishment is having a new boiler installed. Well, I don't know if there's anything wrong with this boiler. Of course, the first thing to do is it's very heavy. First of all, it's very heavy, but it's an older boiler, and they're having a new heating system installed. And so what we've got is an older glowworm, well, it's called a Flexicom 18HX. If anybody needs any bits from Flexicom 18HX, and you see this video, well, the next video, so that's what the next video is going to be about. It's going to be about me looking through this and pulling it apart to see what I might be able to use for model railway before the rest of it goes to the scrapman. So that's what's coming up next. Anyway, on with my fail to find anything useful in the strip down of a microwave.